Maplewood was a town where appearances mattered more than truth. Nestled between rolling hills and pristine neighborhoods, it was the kind of place where lawns were immaculately manicured, and families seemed to exist in a perpetual state of harmony. Among these picture-perfect households stood the Ellingtons, a family so admired that their name alone carried weight. Richard Ellington, a renowned surgeon with hands as steady as his demeanor, commanded respect wherever he went. His wife, Margaret, once crowned Miss Maplewood at age 18, maintained her regal poise even decades later. Together, they had built what appeared to be an unassailable empire of success. Their children, Daniel and Emily, were raised under the watchful eyes of their parents, each carrying the burden of living up to the family's reputation. Daniel, the eldest, was a star athlete and scholar, while Emily, though quieter and less outspoken, excelled academically and artistically. To outsiders, the Ellingtons were untouchable, a model for other families to aspire to. But beneath this veneer of perfection lay cracks, invisible but deepening with every passing year. The house on Willow Lane, with its white picket fence and rose garden, served as both sanctuary and prison. Within those walls, expectations loomed large, silencing dissent and stifling individuality. For Richard and Margaret, maintaining appearances was paramount, and their children bore the brunt of this relentless pursuit of perfection. Emily, in particular, struggled under the weight of her parents' demands. While Daniel thrived in their carefully constructed world, she chafed against its constraints. Her artistic pursuits often clashed with her father's insistence on practical ambitions, leading to frequent arguments behind closed doors. Yet, no matter how strained things became inside the home, the Ellingtons always presented a united front to the outside world. It wasn't until Emily's disappearance that the cracks began to show. One crisp autumn morning, Margaret woke to find her daughter missing. At first, she assumed Emily had gone for an early walk or perhaps stayed out late with friends. But when hours turned into days, panic set in. Emily's room remained untouched, her bed neatly made, her sketchbook open on her desk, and her favorite sweater hanging in the closet. It was as if she had simply vanished into thin air. Margaret's frantic phone calls to friends and authorities painted the image of a desperate mother, but Richard's reaction was markedly different. Calm and composed, he fielded questions from investigators with practiced ease, offering plausible explanations for his daughter's absence. Emily has always been impulsive, he told them. She probably ran off to clear her head. But there was something unsettling about his detachment. Even as the search intensified, Richard seemed almost relieved by the situation, his polished exterior betraying little emotion. Meanwhile, Daniel, usually the epitome of confidence, appeared increasingly uneasy, his alibi riddled with inconsistencies that only grew more apparent as investigators dug deeper. Surveillance footage captured Emily at a gas station the night before her disappearance. She looked pale and disheveled, her movements hurried and erratic. In one frame, she glanced over her shoulder, her expression filled with raw fear. This image sent shockwaves through the community, raising questions about whether her departure had been voluntary or forced. Then came the discovery of Emily's diary, hidden beneath her mattress. Its pages revealed a side of her life few had suspected. Entries spoke of sleepless nights, whispered threats, and a growing sense of dread. One passage, dated just weeks before her disappearance, read, "I can't stay here anymore. He won't let me leave, but I have to try." The cryptic words hinted at a darker reality within the Ellington household. As investigators pieced together the timeline, the perfect family began to unravel. Suspicion fell squarely on Richard, whose methodical nature and control over the household raised red flags. When it emerged that he had erased critical footage from their home security system, the doubts surrounding him deepened. Had he acted alone, or were others complicit in covering up whatever had transpired? The anonymous letter arrived without warning, slipped into the Ellington mailbox like a ghostly apparition. 5 chilling words scrawled across the page: "You know what happened. Tell the truth." Margaret crumpled the note in trembling hands, her carefully maintained composure fracturing under the pressure. 4 years, she had played her part in the charade, masking the horrors unfolding behind closed doors. Now, confronted with the possibility of exposure, her facade began to crumble. Richard, however, remained steadfast, denying any involvement in Emily's disappearance. "This is some sort of sick joke," he declared during a press conference, his voice dripping with disdain. But his outward confidence couldn't mask the unease lurking beneath. Investigators noticed subtle changes in his behavior: nervous tics, restless pacing, and an inability to meet their gaze directly. Meanwhile, Daniel's story continued to unravel. Under intense questioning, he admitted to knowing more than he initially let on. On the night of Emily's disappearance, he claimed to have heard shouting coming from his parents' bedroom. When he investigated, he found Emily cowering in the hallway, her face bruised and tear-streaked. According to Daniel, she begged him not to intervene, fearing retaliation. Instead, she packed a small bag and slipped out the back door, promising to return once she'd found help. But she never returned. Daniel's confession added fuel to the fire, prompting renewed efforts to locate Emily. Tips poured in from concerned citizens, many recounting strange encounters with the Ellingtons over the years. Some described seeing bruises on Emily's arms, others noted her reluctance to speak freely in her parents' presence. Each detail chipped away at the illusion of perfection, revealing a family bound together by fear rather than love. The turning point came when an anonymous tip led investigators to an abandoned storage unit on the outskirts of town. Inside, they discovered a collection of Emily's belongings: a backpack, journals, and pieces of artwork she had created in secret. Among these items was a body wrapped in plastic, its identity confirmed by DNA evidence: Emily Ellington. The revelation sent shockwaves through Maplewood. How could such a tragedy occur within one of the town's most respected families? As grief gripped the community, authorities focused their attention on uncovering the full extent of the crime. Margaret's breakdown during an interrogation session provided the final piece of the puzzle. Sobbing uncontrollably, she confessed to knowing about Richard's violent tendencies but failing to act. "I thought I could protect her," she wailed. "But I was wrong. So wrong." According to Margaret, Richard had grown increasingly controlling after Emily began pushing back against his authority. When she attempted to leave home, he snapped, resorting to violence to keep her compliant. That fateful night, when Emily tried to escape again, Richard intercepted her, ensuring she wouldn't make it far. Margaret, paralyzed by fear and guilt, helped dispose of the evidence, believing it was the only way to preserve their family's reputation. Daniel, meanwhile, had been aware of his sister's plight but felt powerless to intervene. By the time he gathered the courage to confront his father, it was too late. Consumed by guilt, he tried to distance himself from the family, hoping to erase the memory of what had transpired. But the past refused to stay buried. Richard was arrested and charged with murder, maintaining his innocence despite mounting evidence against him. During his trial, witnesses testified to his volatile temper and obsessive need for control. Psychologists painted a portrait of a man driven by narcissism and entitlement, incapable of empathy or remorse. Margaret pleaded guilty to being an accomplice after the fact, her testimony exposing the lengths to which she had gone to protect her husband and herself from scrutiny. In court, she expressed profound regret for her role in enabling Richard's abuse, acknowledging the devastating consequences of her silence. For Daniel, the aftermath proved equally challenging. Left to grapple with the sins of his father, he struggled to rebuild his life amidst the wreckage of his family's legacy. Friends and neighbors, once eager to associate with the Ellingtons, now avoided him, unsure how to reconcile the person they knew with the horrors committed by his family. The town of Maplewood, too, was forced to confront uncomfortable truths. How had they missed the signs? What else might be hidden behind the facades of their seemingly perfect families? As whispers spread about other possible victims, residents began questioning the very foundation of their community. The Ellington home, once a symbol of success, now stood empty, its walls stained by secrets long concealed. Real estate agents struggled to sell the property, deterred by its dark history. Neighbors who had once envied the family now crossed the street to avoid it, unable to shake the feeling that evil still lingered within its confines. In the end, the Ellington case served as a stark reminder of the dangers of prioritizing appearances over authenticity. Behind every flawless exterior lies the potential for darkness, waiting to be exposed when least expected. For all its charm, Maplewood was not immune to the same flaws that plagued larger cities: secrets, lies, and the human capacity for cruelty. As the dust settled, survivors of similar situations came forward, emboldened by the Ellingtons' exposure. Support groups formed, offering safe spaces for individuals to share their stories and seek healing. Local schools implemented programs aimed at teaching students about recognizing and addressing toxic behaviors within their own families. Yet, despite these efforts, questions lingered. How many more families hid their secrets behind closed doors? And if you looked closely enough, would you see the cracks? For Daniel Ellington, the answer was clear. No amount of wealth or prestige could erase the damage wrought by years of silence and complicity. Moving forward meant acknowledging the past, learning from it, and striving to create a future free from the shadows that had consumed his family. And so, the tale of the Ellingtons became a cautionary story, one told around dinner tables and whispered in hushed tones, a reminder that sometimes, the most dangerous monsters aren't strangers lurking in the shadows, but the ones we invite into our homes.